an invitation to pay attention to and practice, because it keeps one present. Radical tolerance. One could say tolerance is an excuse almost, or tolerance has got its limits, or it's overrated. But actually the way that I'm talking about tolerance is not tolerance on the conceptual level, and not tolerance in the face of wild things that happen out there somewhere in the world. I'm talking about the intimacy of tolerance in our own life, in our family, in our relationships with other people, in our neighborhood, in our interactions on the everyday level with people who don't necessarily mean us terrible harm. They're just caught in their own world. See, everybody is caught in their own world. Everybody's in many ways lost in their own bubble, doing their own thing. They don't know who you are. They don't know how you think. They don't know what values you have. They don't know what beliefs you carry. They don't know what wound you've got. They're too busy tending to their own wound or avoiding their own wound. This capacity that we have when we really allow it, or court it, or practice it, of something called radical tolerance, brings us into the present, stops us just giving deference to the dreamer, the dream state, the unconscious one within us, who just goes about their day unconsciously in many ways, judging this, judging that, intolerant of this, intolerant of that. This is suffering. So a simple remedy that isn't a... Is that working? Yes, it is. A simple remedy that is an ongoing practice. It's not a final destination. It's just the ongoing practice of coming back to presence. In this presence that doesn't have so much of the judging mind in it, is it possible to practice a deeper level of radical tolerance without becoming reactive? It's this reactivity that is the cause of our pain so much of the time. This trigger, this reactivity. But the reactivity only comes when we're in the dreamer, when the dreamer is on track. We don't really know so much of what presence, deeper presence, is. And so in the dream, in the reactive self, we're constantly in a state almost of intolerance, passive intolerance or active intolerance. The reactive state is either passive or active. And in many ways, in order to know a deeper freedom and a deeper peace and a deeper equanimity, we need to come out of that reactive state of being, whether it's passive or whether it's active. And that means really looking at ourselves and not just waiting for the reactivity to go into its active phase because it's triggered by somebody, but actually to look deeper all of the time and find out who we really are on the deepest levels. And the ways of doing that are to, many, many different ways that I talk about endlessly on this channel. But in this particular instance, one of the ways is to keep coming back, not just to presence, which is almost an amorphous word that points to a lot of things, but can be slightly vague or interpreted as vague, but actually come back to this radical tolerance. When something happens, when the insult comes in, wherever it is, where the barb comes in, where the judgment comes from you or from another, where somebody does something that you really think that they shouldn't be doing, not on a really big scale, but on a small scale. What does it mean to be radically tolerant? Who are you? Where's the edge? What happens to you if you start becoming caught in a deeper level of tolerance? And I don't mean faking it. I mean really finding what that means for each of us. Because in some ways, even this small thing takes us to the edge of ourselves. Who am I if I start allowing these things to be as they are? I remember I had a particular problem with a neighbour. I do have problems. I used to, I should say. I used to have problems with neighbours who I thought, they shouldn't be doing this, they shouldn't be doing that. This is too much, that is too much. None of it ever really stopped. And it wasn't huge, it was just small stuff. But it used to really get under my skin and cause me a lot of suffering. And I'd become quite reactive within myself. It didn't really change anything. So I decided to see if I could drop it and just be okay and open out more broadly. I talked about this in a video ages ago. To open out beyond the intolerance, to open out wider than the reactivity, to open wider than all of it. And you can't do that if you're in the dream. You can't do that if you're in the unconscious mechanism. You have to come out of it. And as soon as you come out of it, then you're in presence and there's more chance of opening to it and becoming, in effect, more tolerant. Allowing things rather than saying absolutely not. And I mean, sometimes, of course, one has to take action, speak one's truth, hold a line, have a boundary. None of this that I'm talking about is in opposition to it. I'm really only talking about when we come from the reactive self. It's the reactive self that actually is the cause of most of our suffering. And the reactive self is not always, enormous, like it's not a raging kind of fit or anything. It can be subtle, it can be small, it can be almost oblique, it can be kind of hidden. And like I said, it can be passive and active. It has a passive way of being, but also that just means that the active aspect of reactivity is lying dormant, waiting, not waiting to pounce or anything, but it is there just in a waiting fashion. Then something happens and it comes online. So both of these aspects of reactivity, the passive and the active, are playing themselves out in us, and that whole thing has to go. And that's not a one-time deal. That's an ongoing an ongoing experience, an ongoing unfolding, an ongoing practice, if you like, to see that, to know that, and to almost step in and interrupt that pattern. We interrupt the pattern and something starts to happen. We interrupt the pattern of passive and active reactivity. And then we fall into something deep, something painful, something troublesome to the self. Because we don't really know on a certain level who we would be if we dropped it. Would we just be bulldozed over by life and become a victim of life? But we're already a victim of life because we're already a victim of our passive and active reactivity. And so, maybe that's a doorway. Maybe it's the doorway, one of the doorways that we seek. So I'm just bringing to the table the possibility of waking up in the morning and practicing radical tolerance, and to do whatever it takes to bring you into a more profound presence during the day, during the course of the number of things that happen, internal things and external things, during the course of a day, and to intervene through presence in this ongoing pattern that we carry around. So I hope that's spoken to you. Many blessings.